Well, it turns out this will be our last fireside, screenside chat that we're going to have. We hope that they've been helpful. These questions come not necessarily from many students, but they are interesting questions that may apply to any number of people. And there are two that I wanted to spend a few minutes with this morning. One was on the notion of having complete proteins in the diet, and does it matter how much protein you take in? Well, it turns out this analogy that I gave in class, I think, is one that should be thought about. If you've got 10 tires, bicycle tires, you can make 5 bicycles. And if you've got 20 bicycle racks or bicycle assemblies, of course, some of them aren't going to be used, half of them won't be used. So you can only use so much. The body only needs so much protein. And if you've got excess of certain amino acids in that protein diet, they aren't going to do anything but be either digested and not incorporated or simply eliminated. So the amount of protein that the body needs per day is not all that much. And the concern that some people have, and we talked about it, of certain foods like rice being low in lysine, therefore you take beans, which are higher in lysine, to balance it off, because of the 20 amino acids, 9 of them are needed in the diet for certain. And the lysine is one of those amino acids. So the concern is that should you always have, if you're taking in rice, should you always have beans or some other lysine or peanuts, lysine-rich foods? And the answer is not really, because the body doesn't consume, it doesn't require all that much protein material per day. And if you've got a reasonably, and that's a general word that doesn't come to definition, if you've got a reasonably varied diet in your day-to-day, you really don't need to worry about having rice and having it low in lysine, because you will almost certainly have it in other foods. But of course that means that you've got to be eating a few portions of fruit and vegetables per day. Plus, if you have some form of meat or fish, you will also be having your protein material provided. So I think the concern over this is a little more than is perhaps necessary. The same holds true, I think, in trying to get some numbers associated with cancer-causing situations. There are many causes of cancer, and many of these cancers are different one from the other. And there have been a tremendous number of papers produced in the last many years, actually, to try to sort out and tease out the information. And one of the items that was asked about, that 90%, which was what was given in class, of cancers are attributable to lifestyle and environmental factors. And one of the questions that was given was to give the number in principle of preventable cancers, and the answer was that if about 40% of cancers are attributable to lifestyle factors, that was how you solved that particular problem. This is very difficult mathematics and statistics to try to sort out. Just to summarize some of the complications, is the diet is thought to be causative to cancers in about 1/3 of all global cases. Tobacco, a similar number, 25 to 30%. Infections, 15 to 20%. Radiation, 5 to 10%. Pollution and alcohol and sexual activity, 4% each or so. And that leaves genetics to be about 10%. So trying to tease out the numbers to say what can be prevented is very difficult, because most of the studies that are done on a very narrow and highly focused kind of question that is being asked. And so I think it's safe to say that in identical twins, that probably 70 or 75% of the cancers are environmental, which means the food, where you live, how you treat your life, whether you use alcohol or tobacco. 75% of cancers would be attributable to environment, and maybe 20-25% to genetics. But that's in identical twins. That number of 20 to 25% drops to about 10% of heritable factors that are associated with cancer that are just genetic in nature. So this is not it's not a particularly good answer to all of this, but in the case of one paper that I looked up in 2010, 2011, they're causing new cases of cancer. That the causative factors reviewed in that supplement account for an estimated 43% of all new cases of cancer in the UK, and about 50% of all cancer deaths. And I think what's important to take away from all of this muddle over cancer and what causes it and what doesn't is the main thing is to have a varied diet and not smoke. That covers an awful lot of cancer reduction right there in one simple statement. And here's a statement that was in that paper, and it's consistent with my colleagues' analysis of this here at McGill. Over the past 40 years in the UK, the probability of death before the age of 70 has been halved in the last 40 years, and over the next few decades, it is likely to be halved again, meaning that people who are alive now at age 15 to 25 or so have a life expectancy of up into the 90s and 95. So retiring at 65 may not actually be even logical in the next few decades, because people are living longer, they're living better, and that age 65, as far as any information I can surmise from reading, was simply set up by one of the Kaisers in Germany in the late 1800s, and he just said 65 is when people have to stop working. And somehow the magic number, you're 65, are you retired? I think that's going to be a thing of the past. And hopefully, if cancer can be reduced by an effective, wide-ranging diet, doing the best you can with wide-ranging foods, having exercise, that's about all we can really advise as a simple gradient to improve your lives and lengthen your lifespan. I think that's really what it comes and what it boils down to. We hope you've enjoyed the course. We've done our best to give you as much information as possible, but the bottom line of answers: eat this, take this, don't do this, and don't do that. The only don't do's are really smoking and excessive drinking, but exercise and moderate diet really matter in the simplest form of an equation, if there is one for this.